Good to be back. Good to be back. 1 o'clock Central Time. The Pete Sousa Show, of course, brought to you by Slovakics. Let's get the Slovakics logo up there, Scotty. I mean, Ray from Slovakia. Hey, here we go. Slovakics. It's almost as though they got Joe Namath to be their mascot. We are brought to you by Slovakics and, of course, Crawford Austin Properties. D1, Daniel Stark, Sikora Family Ford, and much, much more. Of course, we're powered by the Rogue Media Network. Pete Sousa here, Scotty Swingler on the wheels of steel. We have a segment that we did with Cam that will be towards the end of the show. Today, I'm actually this is good news. So today for the Big 12 and for ESPN, I'm talking to Kenny Dillingham, coach of Arizona State. And then Arizona State gearing up for a huge game called the Big 12 Championship against Iowa State. They're coming off a huge rivalry week victory over Arizona. And they are probably, if not the hottest, one of the hottest teams in the country. It's like they've been playing elimination games every week. So they're in the Big 12 Championship game. I get to interview Coach Dillingham at 11:15 or 2:15 today. And then Joey McGuire right after that at 2:30, which is pretty cool. And we're going to share those interviews with you here later in the week to get you set. Joey McGuire is not in the Big 12 Championship, but he did coach a team who beat both teams playing in the Big 12 Championship. Texas Tech beat Iowa State, and they also beat Arizona State earlier in the year. I mentioned Iowa State and Arizona, and the fight. I guess I don't even know if Iowa State and Arizona, they did get into it after the game, but that wasn't anywhere near what happened at Ohio State with Michigan. Some of the other stuff. This is what took place post game, Michigan and Ohio State. It got really ugly. Like pepper spray gets involved. Clearly, this is one of the most fierce rivalries in the country. This was Florida and Florida State. That is a grass surface, which is perfect for planting the flag. I don't know if you can plant it in AstroTurf. And this was NC State and North Carolina. It got ugly, and it continued to take place throughout the course of the week, or I should say the day, Saturday. It really was a Saturday thing. And if you think about it this way, Michigan, Ohio State, that was Eastern time, I guess noon, but Central time here, that starts at 11. So it was the earliest game of the weekend or of the day on Saturday, and one of the most watched. I mean, you have a 6-5 Michigan team now who pulled off a huge upset and a special game and a special win for Michigan. And you could say it was marred by the fight. Someone could say, and I subscribe to this, if you don't want them planting the flag in the middle of your field, you got 60 minutes to stop them on the field. Now, you also, if you're Michigan, that's kind of a bummer that by going to plant the flag in the middle of the field there, you do sort of lose a little bit of the shine on what was just an amazing upset. So you sort of do it to yourself there. You go to plant the flag, that becomes the story. But as a fan, I will say, and I have to bring in a caveat, as long as no one gets hurt, right, which people can get hurt, I have almost no issue with this. And this is where I come down on this. The intense rivalries, the hatred, for lack of a better term, the war that goes on, those 60 minutes we're talking about in game on a football field is an amazingly brutal but beautiful thing. And sometimes I feel as though post-game particularly, we lose a little bit of the rivalry. We lose a little bit of the competitive gene that makes the sport so great. I love sportsmanship, but at the same time, I worked with a guy this week. I got a chance to do first round of the FCS playoffs, and I worked with this guy, Dave Steckel, awesome guy, calls games for ESPN as an analyst. He was an offense or defensive coordinator for Missouri for 15 years, and they had amazing teams. They won, I guess, the Big 12, the SEC. They played in Cotton Bowls. These were the Missouri teams that were very, very good. Finished the season ranked 4th and 3rd and whatever. But he talked about, hey, I hate losing more than I like winning. And because he was talking to me about why he hasn't gotten back into coaching. He's had opportunities. And he said that it wasn't suitable anymore in my life. He's older, and he would tell you that. But it's almost as unhealthy as a perspective as that is. It's also like sort of refreshing nowadays because there is a lot of sportsmanship that almost to me seems like it's bled over into basketball, and I think it's really devalued some aspects of the sport. And when I see teams battling post game like that, again, you don't ever want to see anybody get hurt, but it does remind you of, oh wow, like these guys really hate to lose, and they don't like each other. I liked what Ryan Day had to say after the game. You know, his team gets, you could say, embarrassed because they were so heavily favored and it's a rivalry game and they can't lose to Michigan again, but they do. And he said our guys just weren't going to let that happen, talking about the planting of the flag. This goes back to Baker Mayfield planting the flag when he was at Oklahoma, doing it at Ohio State. And Baker was asked about this after his game with the Buccaneers yesterday. And he was like, look, I have no problem with it. And, you know, he's probably not the best guy to ask as far as like a decorum, from a decorum standpoint. But, you know, he talked about, hey, let him play. Let the rivalries be what they are. It's almost like the Big 12 when they made it illegal to say horns down, or to not say, to motion, to make the gesture horns down. So I didn't have an issue with it. I do believe that it continued to build and gain momentum and steam throughout the day because of social media and because of, you know, I was out with Christy, my girlfriend, on Saturday night, and I forget what game it was at this point. I really do. But it was another, she was like, wow, there was another fight. And ESPN now is putting out alerts about fights that are, you know, this team, you know, they know we're going to watch, and good for them. We do. So I think that these teams saw the flag planting and they were like, okay, if we win, we're going to plant our flag. And it got crazy throughout the day. Scotty Swingler, your thoughts on some of this? You're kind of a purist when it comes to college football and tradition. You're a Baylor grad. We like to think that, you know, I'm not going to say uppity, but you like to do things the right way.
Are you just saying that because I used to be a minister?
No, not at all. I wasn't saying that. No. That's not why I said that.
Pete,
no.
I will discuss another game where there wasn't a fight, but it was wildly entertaining. It was Friday night's Georgia Tech almost taking down Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Before the game, I got this text from a buddy. Georgia Tech's head coach, Brent Key, said this about Georgia. There's nothing I hate more in the world. It's probably the only thing I hate. When I say hate, like, truly despise everything about it. I really do. Speaking of Georgia's football program. And I texted my buddy back and said, I wish Dave Aranda would take a chapter of this for TCU because Pete, here's the deal. Like with conference realignment and all the things that have happened in the last couple of decades with college football, I miss the regional rivalries, man. I think that's what makes the sport. I think getting the Texas and Texas A&M game back is so good for the sport. I think when TCU joined the Big 12 to give us that yearly Baylor TCU matchup, it's so good for the sport. So,
and Sark kept his guys from doing the flag thing.
Yeah, and, you know, I don't have a strong opinion about fighting one way or the other. I think I tweeted out something like, hey, Ohio State's soft. You know, if you don't want Michigan planting their flag in your field,
you said, yeah,
win the football game. Like you were the heavy favorite, win the freaking football game, and you don't have a problem. But I love it, man. I love the rivalry, the pageantry, the competitiveness. Again, like I said, I wish Baylor would almost be a little more nasty sometimes when it comes to TCU.
So, Baylor, I do want to get your take on this. You know, it happened Saturday. Baylor comes back in their season after being 2-4. They run the table. They win 6 straight. And Sawyer Robertson has just engineered one of the best turnarounds in college football this season. They talk a lot about turnarounds now. Like, again, I mentioned I'm going to get a chance to talk to – you love this, huh?
That was the best play of the game to me. Josh Cameron just mean mugging, walking in over that dude.
Amazing. But you talk about like Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham. I get a chance to talk to him in a little bit. That's the best turnaround in college football. They won 3 games last year. They're going to play in the Big 12 championship. But on the field this year, Baylor's turnaround. I mean, Scotty, I can say this. This is before you started working here. I not only thought that Baylor could run the table. I told Mosley that. I told Cam that. I told both of them that. There's record of both of that. And it's not just because I had a bug up my rear end that Baylor was going to pull off a miracle. I thought that they had the dudes to do it. I thought they had the dudes, like about Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. And I do love Dave Aranda and his style of coaching. And they did it. As an alum, as someone who's been around the school for a very long time, where was your head at 6 weeks ago?
I don't remember if we've talked about this or not on this show. Man, I was ready to walk away from Dave Aranda 6 weeks ago, or before 6 games ago.
Yeah.
I think there's a buy in there, right? So it's 7-8 weeks ago, because it's really easy, and any objective person can understand why my head would be here, right? He wins a championship in 2021 and a Sugar Bowl. Excellent season, excellent performance. But those juniors and seniors were brought in by Matt Rule. He inherited a very strong tradition from Matt Rule. We had made the conference championship game in 2019, which was Rule's last season, right? So you win a title largely on the back of Rule's players, and then you go from 12-2 to 6-6 to 3-9, and then you open this season 2-4. Like, any Baylor fan who thinks I'm crazy for at that point being like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Right? Like, but he has shut me up.
Yeah.
Like, it has been, the last 6 weeks of Baylor football have been probably the most fun teams to watch since 2015. Like this has been an incredibly dynamic, fun, mostly dominant run. And I'm going to put out an article tomorrow, I think. Now you need to win the Big 12 next season. Like, I'm actually not satisfied if Dave Aranda goes 8-4 again next year.
Yeah.
If it's anything worse, I'm not satisfied, because I'm not good with a 4-year streak where the mountaintop is 8-4.
Yeah.
In this Big 12, in this economy of college football where everybody is vulnerable, it doesn't look like anybody's impenetrable. You mentioned Arizona State. Look at what Indiana did in one season.
Yeah.
Also going from 3 wins to,
and we talked about
10.
this a little bit, and we have, even teams like Alabama, they're just not as strong as they used to be, because the second string strong safety, who's a 5-star, is going to go somewhere where he can play somewhere right away.
It's going to go start somewhere, right? Yeah. I mean, I think, a lot of people were worried.
He'll transfer, is what we were saying.
Yeah, like a lot of people were worried NIL would tilt the balance towards those blue bloods, but what it's done, I think, more is leveled the playing field.
Yes.
Sawyer Robertson is going to get offered a lot of money to go start at a bigger program, and Baylor's just going to have to pay him. But Sawyer Robertson transferred to Baylor because he wasn't starting at a big program, and there was a coaching change. So
we'll find out how much goodwill there is between Sawyer Robertson and Baylor coming up here.
Oh, he's going to stay.
And the next step, well, that's
and I have to say that because that's what I want.
Yeah, no, and I want him to stay too. But and I think he will. I truly think he will. I mean, having a conversation with the guy, he is. I just think he is about all the right stuff.
Me too.
And I don't know, but at the same time, you got to grab him and say, "Hey, this might be."
But to answer your question,
this might be your time to make a lot of money, dude. This could be it. So,
I got some pushback on a tweet Saturday where I said, "Okay, Dave Aranda's turnaround's been remarkable. Now prove it's not a fluke. Prove it's not a fluke. Like, go win the bowl game." I'm hoping to death we face.
Scotty, I got to tell you, that's a little frustrating for me.
Well, let me finish, and then I'll let you tell me why.
Yeah,
because like. A six game winning streak in a season that doesn't even get you to a conference title is not good enough for me. Baylor should be competing for the conference championship every year in this new Big 12. If you go blow your bowl game to some SEC mid-tier team, and if you come out next season and start 2-4, you haven't proven anything to me.
Can you wait till January 30th to tweet that out? Like,
we're gonna play our bowl game.
That's like, and I gave Christy.
We're gonna play a bowl game in 20 days.
I gave Christy a hard time about this in the moment. We went out on the Tuesday night before Thanksgiving, last Tuesday, and we go to Terry Black's. We sit down, we're having barbecue, our kids are there, everything's fun. You met them. They were here last week. It was all good. Were you here when they came up last week?
I was.
Oh, you missed them. Okay, so in the middle of not even the middle, like in the first 15 minutes, she starts talking about how Hard 8 barbecue is better than Terry Black's.
Oh, man.
Like, we're talking about how awesome it is, but you know what's better is hard 8.
I'm also just not sure I agree with that take.
Well, it does either way. Like this is a celebration of Terry Blacks right now. Everybody's enjoying it. Yeah. Why do I have to start thinking about where I'm not or where I need to be the next time I go eat barbecue? Scotty Swingler will not allow the Baylor fan base to enjoy this 6-game run that has got us to 8-4. Right away, you're saying, well, next year, 8-4 is not going to be
No, the first thing I said is don't lose your bowl game to some mid-tier SEC team. Like, and it's because I want Dave Aranda to be successful.
So do I.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And like, I get frustrated when people say, well, we're Baylor, so let's be satisfied with 8 wins.
No, I agree.
I'm out on that. I'm all the way out on that.
By the way, okay. Let me bring one thing in. Talking about Dave Aranda. This is one of the reasons why I really felt like they had the guys, the horses to make it happen. When we talked to him, one of those first games I called, and you have the coaches meetings because Coach Aranda is not going to tell you much. I'm very fortunate to have those opportunities because you sit down with him. And he talked about the type of guys that he had on campus. And he said, and he didn't say the term, but those muscle tees, right? Like he said, we had outlawed them. Like we didn't want guys wearing those, and he said, we got rid of that because now the guys that we have, they all wear like if we had that rule, like these guys wouldn't even know how to dress. And he mentioned like these guys are about ball. They're they're studs. They're out there wearing the muscle tees, the tanks, and like that's who they are. And to me, after hearing for so long this person over player stuff, that was, and look, dude, I've said it before. I love Scott Drew and Jay Wright are two of my favorite coaches ever because they have guys that play the game. You're so proud of your players. Like Jay Wright, when you watch Villanova play, you would watch those players and you'd be like, not only are they good, but I'm like proud that these guys represent an institution that I'm tied to. Baylor's the same way with Scott Drew. Like you just love the guys. I called the game on Wednesday on radio. Jeremy Roach comes over. I mean, he's talking about God and talking about, it's just it's a really cool deal. And forget about God if you get hung up on that. He was talking, I don't, but he was talking about gratitude, and like, it was really cool. And I was like, wow, these guys really are special, with football, I have an opinion on that. Okay. There are too many guys that are important to you winning to be so fixated on a certain type of individual. It doesn't matter. Like, by the way, I can be different than you. I can want to all day wear muscle tees and you want to wear a button-down shirt. And it doesn't mean that like either of us is better than the other. We're just coming from different places. And sometimes those different places you come from make you a little more on the edge and make you a little bit better of a football player. And it also does, and I am this guy when it comes to like college sports, it also gives certain individuals an opportunity to learn and grow at a school like Baylor, which otherwise they would not have. Yep.
Absolutely.
So I think I'm pumped about that. I'm pumped about Dave Aranda having a different type of guy back on campus, right? Just because they're different doesn't mean they're like guys we got to worry about. I think it's really cool. I do. I think like you need a little bit of edge.
And the historical perspective is, because you're using very careful language and I appreciate it, but the historical perspective is Art Briles was known for bringing in troubled people for a second chance. And that's part of what bit him.
I got away from him, man.
That thing.
It did.
It did. And so I think.
And I, honestly, if I was a college football coach, I'm not at all saying that I could get caught up in what Art Briles got caught up in. But I am such a let's give him another chance.
Yeah.
Because I was afforded another chance in my life.
Right.
So I'm like, let's give someone a second chance.
Well, and the difference is.
And that gets dangerous.
The whole Briles catastrophe was, in my opinion, and I'm not any more informed than anyone else.
Yeah.
It was a second chance without a lot of supervision. So what Dave Aranda can do, and I think is doing, and what Baylor should do is, like let's bring in the athletes, the Jimmies and Joes to win football games. And if it's a, not my language, troubled kid, or if it's someone that we aren't certain about their character, they're off the field, You set a high standard.
Well, I got news for you.
You put them around other good people, and you elevate them, and you keep them accountable, which is what Dave Aranda does.
Well, and I got news for you. There was accountability, right? Earlier in the season, some guys made a mistake that, and you can try to figure it out if you want at home, but and that mistake wasn't like a mistake that you will call like the most overwhelming, like egregious mistake, but they made a mistake, and a lot of guys sat out.
Yep.
And that's the message, right?
That's good.
And we sat here, Cam and I talked about this earlier. We were a little frustrated with some of these players because it's like, hey, man, this guy's giving you an opportunity. And you're kind of like, you're kind of throwing it back at him, which you're not respecting your coach by doing that. So, that's a lot of interesting, cool stuff.
Can I end on one more note?
Yeah, one more thing.
The celebration. You told me to celebrate. So here's my celebration. I was texting some buddies yesterday about, I think one of the biggest keys in college football is, do the players buy into their head coach? Because we've seen really good head coaches do really poorly at certain programs because they just don't generate whatever that buy-in is. What I can say for Baylor is they have bought into Dave Aranda. The players play for him. The players love him. All the transfers and recruits cite him as a reason they're here. So for that reason, I'm in. They've bought into Dave Aranda, so I will buy into Dave Aranda.
Let's go. All right, it's great, actually. At least let's just ride that till January. Then we're all allowed to get frustrated if guys get the transfer portal and stuff. That's the time for that. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to talk Cowboys, talk about Matt Eberflus being gone from Chicago, talk about my trip to call Tarleton State this week, and the Pete Sousa Show. Stay with us. Also, we're going to talk about how Miami's mascot Sebastian tried to hit on a girl on the sidelines this week, a young TV reporter, and he was rebuffed. We'll tell you about that too.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.